as the coronavirus killed
The number of
more than
people who
200,000.
contracted the
I can't say it
coronavirus
enough.
continues to grow.
Enough
More than
people have died.
1,600
We don't need any more
Americans
deaths like
The
crazy.
virus has come not from China.
Fighting the coronavirus.
Spent weeks minimizing what is clearly a very serious problem. No doubt these people have good intentions.
I think the pandemic has reminded us how we do not have enough doctors in the right specialties and in the right places. Since the beginning of the pandemic, if you would try to remember, doctors have been working round the clock in order to save the lives of people. And in the process also of doing this one, many dedicated doctors succumb to the deadly virus. And we know all that one in many news that we have seen. We also see hospitals overflowing with patients, understaffed, but then the battle continues. This in itself is a manifestation that the growing need for doctors in every corners of the world remain to become a reality and at the same time a problem. The path to a significant curricular reform is a difficult thing because of a variety of factors, to include the challenge of physical distancing, since we all know practice-based learning is the backbone of education, especially among doctors. We need to see patients. We need to harness our skills, knowledge, and attitude by looking at patients, okay, so that this would be able to enhance or forge our professional identity and develop an orientation to a patient-focused based care that would shape the practice of future medical doctors. We wanted to produce doctors with a heart. And our goal is also to define a unique characteristic that will be anchored to the local needs and national health needs of the people of Mindanao. I believe looking at the vision mission of the college and influenced by the universal healthcare law, I think we seek to envision and integrate a comprehensive approach that will be cost-effective, promotive, and preventive, as well as curative, palliative, and rehabilitative, one that would encompass the entire domain of the individuals and the population, particularly here in Mindanao, where we are trying to be committed in producing medical doctors imbued with a heart to serve and is willing to contribute for nation building in our country. And I think this is always a possible. This is always our strategic plan to set apart GMC as a college of medicine. We wanted to create doctors with a heart. We are very lucky. We have our own LMS, the Learning Management System, powered by Huawei. This is the first in the Philippines. Everything is there in terms of lectures, in terms of resources for learning. And I think our new generation could adapt of it because these are the computer-based population. The COVID-19 has resulted in schools shut down all across the world. And education has changed with a distinctive rise in the new method of learning. And I think adaptability and ingenuity were the two core values that we have learned from this experience. Dream big. They have to dream big. Dare to dream. As long as you have the dedication, you have the passion of becoming good doctors in the future, we welcome you to the College of JMC, especially in the Department of Medicine.
Let's bow our heads and feel the presence of the Almighty Father, our Lord Jesus Christ. Almighty Father, Creator of heaven and earth, we bow to you and give you praise. Thank you for this wonderful morning that you have given us. Lord, we humbly ask for your blessings as we meet today to listen to our guest speakers who will discuss a very important activity, the topic that talks about stigma, culture, diversity, and mental health. We truly appreciate, O God, the great honor of participating in your work of creation. We ask you, loving Father, to complement this signal honor with a sense of responsibility. Teach us to realize that in the midst of these trying times, there is still hope. Hope is one thing that can help us get through the darkest times. Waking up every morning believing that today is going to be better than yesterday. We need your constant reminder that our mental health is a priority, that we don't have to struggle in silence. Our healing takes time, but asking for guidance is a courageous step. Finally, loving Father, to complete the work of your creation, teach us to fully participate in the education of our students so that we will be contributing not only to the welfare of our family but also to our community, our country, and to society as a whole. I give back all the glory and honor and thanksgiving to our Almighty Father, our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay, so thank you so much, Ma'am Jo de la Pera, for that opening prayer. So, again, good morning to everyone. Good morning to all our viewers, and welcome to another episode of JMC Edu Trends, which is today we'll be discussing about stigma, culture, privilege, diversity, and mental health. We know that this topic is highly relevant, especially this time of uncertainty. Lahat naman tayo confused, lahat tayo may pinagdaanan na we can consider as that it takes toll to our mental health, diba? So we would like to give thanks to the Jose Maria College and also the JMC Communication for allowing us to conduct this one. We are so grateful from the Office of the Guidance Center na i-share yung mga knowledge natin sa ating mga viewers at sa lahat ng mga nanonood po. Okay? To further discuss our webinar today, may in-invite tayo na 4 guest speakers na mag-share ng mga natutunan nila, yung mga learnings nila, yung mga knowledge that will really help us paano conquer in a day in this time of pandemic. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce first our first speaker. He is a registered psychometrician and currently having his master's degree in psychology in San Pedro College and the guidance facilitator from postgraduate department. Please help me welcome Mr. Jonathan Ferrer. Good morning, sir.
All right. Good morning, Sir Ariel. Actually, I'm having a trouble with my ano pala,
Yeah, parang hindi
my
ka nakikita
camera.
sa screen.
Yeah. Wait lang.
It's
Anyway,
that's okay, sir.
we'll fix this one na lang siguro later on after my presentation so that I can turn on my camera during the Q&A. Is that okay, ano, Sir Ariel?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, but everyone expect naman mga minimal,
Yeah,
technical problem.
my
So
God.
that's okay.
Anyway,
That's okay.
okay, sige. Sige
So
na
I'll
lang.
give you the floor na,
Anyway,
sir.
okay po. Okay.
Take
So
it
thank you for
away.
that, Sir Ariel. Okay. So yeah. So good morning everyone again. Okay. So before I begin with my presentation, okay. So I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to Ma'am Loy, our guidance head, and the guidance center for giving me again the opportunity, okay, as one of the speakers for today's or this morning's webinar. All right. So yeah. So before I proceed, okay, um, I would like to share my thoughts muna, okay? So I am very glad, okay, as one of the mental health professionals, um, that people nowadays are actually seeing the value or the importance or the relevance of having a healthy mental condition, or shall I say about the mental health, especially in the Filipino context. Kasi way back before, if we are going to observe, okay, so parang hindi masyado ginabigyan ng much importance ang mental health ng mga Filipinos unlike today. Okay? And I'm very glad as far as I know that JMC is actually so now let's proceed with my um with my slide. All right. So, yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to present this morning is about the mental health awareness. All right. So, next slide, please. As to my objective, okay, as dapat objective, okay, it is to raise awareness about mental health. All right. So, next slide, please. Okay. So, before I jump into the definition of mental health as provided by the World Health Organization, I am going to present first, kumbaga, the basic language or terms that generally, kumbaga, make sense in the aspect of mental health. Right. So first is we have the risk factor or factors. Okay, these are actually the factors that triggers a distracted mental state of the person, which includes it might be our family, friends, loved ones, community, society, the culture, and the situations. For example, itong pandemic natin ngayon, di ba? We all know, especially in the learning experience of the learners, di ba? We all know that with regards to the impact of this pandemic, right? The abrupt transition of the modality of learning, right? So its impact is ano siya? Kumbaga, ang impact niya sa atin is actually lahat tayo parang nagulat or na-surprise. We actually did not expect that kind of pandemic. Actually, magto 2 years na nga siya. Now, in terms of our learning experience, of course, talagang naka-affect siya sa ating performance perhaps, mostly of the students, I mean. So with that, it is actually an example of kumbaga a risk factor that triggers our mental health, something naka-affect siya sa ating mental health perhaps. Okay? Now, next is we have here the protective factor. Okay? So if there is a risk factor, therefore meron din tayong sinasabing protective factor. That includes kumbaga the support group, such as it could be either our family, loved ones, the situation itself again, and the health professionals, wherein it can help us to kumbaga to lessen the burden or tensions that we feel due to those or to the risk factors. All right? So next is we do have the emotional negative state. So actually this refers to our negative feelings as our kumbaga response to the risk factor. Like like we are feeling sad, angry, disappointed, something like that. Okay? So and for the mental illness and mental health problem, okay, I will be discussing this one in the next slide. All right, so next slide, please. All right, so let us proceed with the 4 types of mental state of a person, of the person, I mean. So the first one, yung pinaka-low is, what we had is the no distress, no problem, or no disorder. So it is a state wherein our brain signal or tell us that we need to solve, kumbaga, adapt the problem, okay? For example, if we are hungry, di ba? Kung nagutom tayo, so what we will do, di ba? Maghanap tayo ng pagkain, okay? So if we are tired or feeling sleepy, then we had to sleep, okay? So therefore, the situation does not cause us, kumbaga, a feeling of pressure or a feeling of guilt and etc. Right? So, kumbaga, we are just simply addressing our problem and it does not really affect our kumbaga mental state perhaps. Okay? Now, when we talk about mental distress, it is actually our brain signals us that we have kumbaga, a problem in our environment that we had to deal with it. Okay? So kumbaga it's simply our stress response. Okay? Stress response such as for example, like we are having or we are taking an exam, di ba? So, of course, di ba, during the exam, especially when you are attending or when you are taking kumbaga entrance, it's either entrance exam or something board exam, di ba? What you will feel, di ba? Parang there's a feeling of a butterfly in our stomach ba yung gina-term nila, yung parang ganun, yung parang anxious tayo perhaps, excited. It's a mixture of emotions. So those are actually an example of a mental distress state. Okay? So, but however, it does not really require treatment. Okay? Because during those times na ato na siya ma-experience natin yan siya, of course, we can still cope with it naman din. Okay? So, for example nga, yung sa board exam, di ba? Oh, you feel nervous, you feel tense during or while taking the exam, but in the middle or at the end of the day, makasurpass or makasurvive ka naman din pa rin. It's because makakope mo pa rin pa naman yung tensions or feeling mo during that time. Okay? So that's it. So when we talk about mental health, okay? Actually in this state, the stresses are quite intense na siya. Okay? For example, having a death of a loved one or a family members. Okay? Yung mga severe bullying. Okay? Yung family problems and the alikes. So therefore, kumbaga, it shows that our adaptation or our coping mechanism, some sort of, kumbaga, difficult siya, okay? In addressing that kind of circumstances sa ating life, medyo difficult, yung mental state natin medyo nahihirapan na siya ba, okay? So, therefore, it requires additional help, okay? Additional help from somebody, especially from a mental health professionals such as our guidance counselors and the alikes. Okay? So kailangan na siya. But it does not require treatment or such as yung pharmacological treatment or intervention. Okay? So in short, on this state, we can still manage pa rin, okay? We can still manage pa rin ourselves with the help of other people, but does not require kumbaga a pharmacological intervention, okay? Or kailangan mag-inom ka na ng mga gamot, something like that. Okay? Now, let's proceed with the mental disorder. Okay? Now, on this state, okay. So ang mental health hindi siya kailangan ng pharmacological intervention, but on this state, it requires a scientifically valid treatment or therapeutic kumbaga evidence-based intervention, okay, provided by a trained health professionals. Okay? So on this state, our brain is not actually functioning as it's supposed to function. That is caused by a genetic and environmental factors. So kailangan na talaga siya ng it's either pharmacological intervention or yung mga therapeutic treatment or process by a thorough assessment and proper assessment by a health and well-trained professional, specifically mental health professionals. Okay, now next slide, please. All right, so all together, okay. So altogether, this simply means that these mental states, yung mental states na na-discuss ko kanina, okay, are not actually progressive or continuous or even a stage by stage or hindi siya progressive, hindi siya continuous, hindi siya parang yung nag-level up. It actually, wherein, kumbaga, these mental states could happen in one person in any time at a time. Okay? As shown on your screen, di ba? May example na binigay dyan sa a person can have schizophrenia, tapos at the same time, on that day, namatay ang kanyang mother. Of course, di ba? Pag alam natin na or magkaroon tayo ng death of a loved one, di ba? Nakaka-affect siya sa ating mental health. And then, on that day, nawala yung key niya sa car. So, what will happen? maybe nainis siya or something like that sa paghahanap, okay? And now, and yet, he can still, or he or she can still manages his or herself hanging out with a friend um, and enjoying with them, with his or her friends. Right? So, as I said, itong mental states na to is actually hindi siya progressive, hindi siya continuous na process, but rather it can actually happen to a one person at any time at a time. Okay? So that's it. So let's proceed with the next slide, please. All right. So andito na tayo sa mental health. Okay? So according to the World Health Organization or the WHO, mental health refers to our cognitive, behavioral, and emotional well-being. Or in other words, it is an absence of a mental disorder. Excuse me. Or others may refer it as, kumbaga, it's about our brain health. It started from, or it started from our brain, and then it boils down to our behavioral and emotional well-being. Right. So that's it. So next slide, please. Okay. I had also included the factors that causes depression. All right. So what we have here is we had the family history and the biological factor. Actually, they are just the same. Family history or the biological factor. Okay, so we do have the major life changes. For example, namatayan ka, nakapamilya or loved one, something like that. Okay, yung mga situations na ganun. Okay, so use of alcohol or other drugs, and then depression can also occur for no apparent reason. All right. So let's proceed with the next slide, please. So what causes depression in youth? Okay, so there are actually four causes. Okay, these are the common causes according to the studies. Okay, we do have the peer problems, or for example, yung mga social rejection, or you're rejected by your friends or your classmates, something like that, or magkakaroon ka ng conflicts. Okay, then sexual identification, it has something to do with ang tawag nito, identity crisis, yeah. And then bullying, and then romantic relationships, yung mga broken-hearted. Okay? All right, so let's proceed with the next slide, please. Okay, DSM-5 criteria. All right. So actually, DSM-5 stands for Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder. So this is actually a book, okay, used by a psychologist or other mental health related professionals before we can diagnose a person if he or she is having or suffering from a mental disorder. All right. So actually, I included this one on this session for you to be aware of and to remind you that one criteria does not suffice or guarantee us to diagnose a person that he or she suffers from an illness, or shall I say mental disorder. For example, di ba? Very ngayon, di ba? Mga very common ngayon, di ba? Uy, baka depressed ka na, or feeling ko depressed ka na. Yung mga ganun na mga situations, it is really a big no-no. I want you to remind you guys that or everyone that in diagnosing a person that if he or she is having shall I say depression, actually there are a lot of criteria to be considered and to be observed using this one, the DSM-5. Okay? So in the Bisaya pa na term, dili ta magpataka. Okay? All right? So we need to have the basis, we need to have a thorough thorough basis with a guidance coming from the health professionals using this DSM-5. Okay? So that's it. So but anyway, kung feeling mo na yung feeling mo depressed ka this time, so you can actually refer yourself to a mental health practitioner. Okay? Para at least ma-properly diagnose and ma-properly um, treat ka if ever kung meron man, or ma-properly diagnose ka if wala ba, or something, baka feeling lang yun, baka stress lang yan siya or something like that, yung mga responses mo this time or lately, something like that. Okay, so that's it. So next slide please. So this is what I am saying, okay? So we need to avoid self-diagnosis, ha, guys, kasi yeah, as I said that before we can diagnose someone, it should have a thorough and proper diagnosis or process coming from the mental health professionals. So through the use of the DSM-5. DSM-5 is actually parang yung siyang Bible ng mga psychologists and other mental health professionals. Okay? Kasi doon nila makikita, or doon namin makikita if if talagang na-suffice ba niya yung mga na-observe na behavior sa isang tao, na-support ba niya yung mga criteria given doon or based doon sa DSM-5 na binigay ng DSM-5. Okay? So that's it. Next slide please. All right. So I had also included this one, indirect or coded verbal clues. Okay? So these are actually samples of kumbaga verbal clues or coded verbal clues that we can say that the person is experiencing a challenging situation kumbaga in his or her life that should be properly addressed. Especially, di ba, very common ito, or some sort of yung sa mga nagpo-post sa SOCMED or social media, right? Yung mga pagod na ako, ayoko nang mabuhay, mas magiging okay sila pag wala na ako. Wala naman silang pakialam kung mamamatay na ako, so wag ka nang mag-alala sa akin. So if you can read this one, especially kung may mga friend kayo na nagpo-post ng mga ganito, or even yung parang sinasabi lang nila, okay? Sinasabi nila sa inyo or sa circles nyo, actually it's an alarming na siya, guys. Okay? It's an alarming na that person is actually having or is experiencing a challenging situations that actually affects his or her mental state as a person. So with that, kung makita nyo to siya or marinig nyo coming from your friends or someone or even your classmates, it's actually better na i-refer nyo siya sa mga sa guidance counselor or other mental health professionals para at least ma-address as much as earlier. Okay? If ever, kung meron siyang talagang dinadamdam ngayon sa buhay. Alright? So that's it. Alright, so next slide please. So yeah. And last slide, na pala ito? Okay. So before I end, okay, I want to leave a prose pala coming from 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Lovato. Okay? So ang sabi niya is, you don't have to struggle in silence. You can be unsilent. You can live well with a mental health condition as long as you open up to somebody about it. All right, so that would be all as to my presentation for this morning. So these are my my references in my presentation. All right.
Okay, so thank you so much, Sir Jonathan, for sharing your knowledge about mental health. So, sir, we'll just wait you to open your cam, sir, ha? Because I know everyone is also excited to see your face.
Maybe I'm gonna use another na lang siguro, sir, unit.
Yes.
Yung tablet ko na lang siguro.
Yeah, so thank you so much, sir, for that very informative discussion. Thank you so much, and we'll just see you on our open forum session. Okay, so yes, tama naman si Sir Tan na let's avoid parang self-diagnosis kasi that might lead you to misinterpretation of whatever feelings you are having or experiencing, di ba? So may mga right experts naman na malalapitan to know exactly what we are feeling or ano ba yung nangyayari sa atin. And please don't hesitate or wag tayong maging magduha gani ug duol sa mga expert because they are the ones who knows how to deal with certain mental illnesses or problems. If may mga families naman, so we can ano naman reach out to them or di kaya mga friends, teachers, especially mga guidance counselor natin sa school, andyan naman sila na handang umalalay sa iyo whenever you experience such. Okay? So to proceed with our next presenter, let us all welcome the program head of the Bachelor of Science in Psychology of Isai Maria College. She is a registered psychometrician, a graduate of master's degree in psychology, and a registered psychologist, no other than Miss Abigail Grace B.S. Covito. Good morning, Ma'am Abby.
Good morning. Good morning, Ariel. Good morning, Sir Ariel, and good morning to everybody who is currently in tune with this edu trends. And before I personally begin with my slides for today, I would really thank the guidance office for really having this initiative to really timing din talaga siya because we're still in the month of October and then it's actually the mental health month. Okay, so it's
Yes.
really good to really break the kumbaga ignorance in terms of how to handle the mental health of every individual. Okay, so thank you very much again, Sir Arya, for
Okay, Ma'am
your
Abby,
wonderful introduction.
I'll give you the floor na, Ma'am.
Yes, I believe so. Let me just wait for somebody to flash my. All right, so here it is. So, once again, thank you everybody for being in tune with the Edudrens. Now, I will be talking in connection with the topic of Sir Jonathan a while ago. Siguro in continue with that topic a while ago, I will be talking about mental illness stigma. Now, the stigma, if you're talking about it, is when someone sees you in a negative way because of your mental illness. Discrimination naman is when someone treats you in a negative way because of your mental illness. And when stigma and discrimination is combined, it's actually dangerous to the person who is suffering with a mental illness. Okay? In the Philippines, there are a lot of cases you can consider that people are being stigmatized about their mental illness, which actually also considered na reason why people are a lot of or most of the people who tends to suffer with mental illness tends to suffer in silence because they don't want to be stigmatized about this concern. Stigma happens when a person defines someone by their illness rather than who they are as an individual. So it's quite difficult also when you call somebody with an illness rather than focusing on the person. Okay, for people with mental illness issues, the social stigma and discrimination that they can experience make their problems worse, making it harder to recover. It also causes the person, as what I have said a while ago, it causes the person to actually avoid getting help they need because of the fear of being stigmatized, which right now in a positive way naman, medyo na-e-enlighten naman din ang mga individuals right now compared before, okay? But actually, we still need to really improve to increase awareness about the stigmas regarding this. And to help you understand more about the stigma, there are contributing factors for stigmatizing people, which is the myths about it. These myths are actually untrue, or these are so-called stories or statements that is untrue about mental health, okay, which we need to debunk. Okay, so for the first one, next slide, please. Okay, for the first one, we actually have this myth about mental illness or not real illness. Mental illnesses create distress. They don't go away at instant. Okay, they don't go away on their own and are real health problems with effective treatments. For example, when someone is hurt, you just don't go away. It really just don't go that easily. Hindi siya, it cannot be solved with like a simple a simple painkillers. Okay, it's not that really Kumbaga, hindi siya gano'n kadali ma-remove, okay? So, you should also consider that when we're talking about mental illness, it's actually not a fake news, okay? It's real and it's affecting individuals. Not only you cannot see it physically, maybe there are some cases that you cannot see it physically, but it's actually has a bigger impact towards one's life, okay? The other common myths about mental health is mental illness will never affect me. Okay? Almost those who say they are okay are really not okay. You may not experience a mental illness yourself, but it is very likely that a family member, your friend, or coworker will experience these challenges. It's really good to feel strong, okay? Maganda naman talaga. You feel strong, you feel confident. It's actually very true. But it's actually also very good. But um, don't forget that you also have your own weaknesses. Okay, you have some experiences that actually lead to identifying your experiences that actually might provide distress in your life. So always remember that you are really not completely resilient. We are resilient, but not completely 100% resilient towards battling this mental illness. Remember that Superman also has its own kryptonite. So we have our own kryptonites as well. Okay, so hindi tayo ganun ka 100% resilient. So you should also consider that it could possibly affect you in some cases that are totally different from others. Okay? So yeah, that's the second one. For the third one is you can also there are some cases also that at the minds of some individuals, mental illness is just an excuse for poor behavior. We need to remember that the illness is the reason behind the behavior and not the person. No one chooses to experience a mental illness. A mental illness actually chooses you. Wala naman sigurong taong gustong magkaroon ng mental illness. So, try to remember that, I repeat, try to remember that the illness is the reason for the behavior and not the person. Try to also avoid stigmatizing people with mental illness by seeing a person first and not labeling them by their mental illness. Now, this case, as I continuously talk about mental health, especially for my students also. Okay, I would like to suggest also this to everybody na instead of saying a person is depressed, okay, I'm sorry, instead of saying a depressed person, okay, because it actually starts with the illness itself, bago yung tao, try saying it in a different way. Try saying it that a person with depression, because that sentence can actually more focusing on the person rather than the illness. Another one is when you can another one is an autistic child. Instead of saying an autistic child, you should say, okay, you should say a child with autism, because it lesser focus on the illness but more focus on how to really help or assist the person. Okay, so that's how you can actually call, okay, call it, or how to really address these kinds of issues in terms of avoiding stigma or providing a stigma. Okay, now, what are some harmful effects of stigma? Next slides, please. Okay, now there are some harmful effects of stigma. Number one, of course, we have the feeling of shame, hopelessness, and isolation. Okay, we tend to like remove ourselves in the social activities in life because we fear that we are going to be judged by others. Okay, now there are also some triggers that make us seem that having a mental illness is kahiya-hiya. Okay, so it can also be instilled with the people who has suffering. So they tend to really isolate themselves so that not all individuals can really see that they have such illnesses. Okay, you can also say that the reluctance to ask for help or to get treatment can also be an effect of stigma. Okay, another is lack of understanding by family, friends, or others, which is very rampant. Okay, because they are most of the time there are people who are really not educated to how to handle these cases. Another is fewer opportunities for employment or social interaction. This is actually due to discrimination issues because of the stigma they provide if kumbaga negative behavior towards these people. So this actually starts the discrimination actually starts from here. Okay? They are not invited to some occasions. They are not kumbaga they are not hired because of these issues. Okay, so that can also be examples for that. Bullying, physical violence, or harassment can also take place. Now, medyo highlighted din talaga ito na issue kasi it can actually lead to more cases of um, possible suicide if the person is suffering with depression. So, medyo mabigat din talaga siya na effect when a person is stigmatized to have this kind of illness. Last one is this is more of an internal effect, which is the self-doubt. Okay, this is the doubt that believe that you will never overcome your illness or be able to achieve what you want to in life. Now, this can actually be damaging on really looking for help because why should look for help if I know that I cannot really overcome this illness? So when they tend to have self-doubt with themselves, it increases the possibility of a greater damage for physical and mental health of that individual. So it's really very difficult to consider. Now, I would just also like to take this opportunity to really to also share that in the Philippines kasi we are living in the culture that actually emphasizes with resilience. Maganda naman because sasabihin natin Filipinos are actually resilient in everything. But it actually also has a negative factor because by the way, aside from resilience, yung idea that Filipinos are always happy, okay, like we have this kind of sense of humor always amidst the pain and personal sufferings. It actually makes it more difficult to talk about mental illness out in the open because there are some people, itawa mo na lang yan, okay, okay, kaya lagi nga, okay, because of the idea that we are always resilient and we tend to handle pain with humor. Okay, so the stigma surrounding mental illness only adds to the layer of struggle of people who suffer from various mental health conditions because others may not think or others may think differently on how handling these illnesses. But in the latter part, meron din naman talagang mga problema na hindi na natin kaya, which decreases our resilience and hindi na natin siya kayang itawa, which really decreases also our sense of humor. So, na resilience and humor is actually not all the time effective. So there is also something like that. Okay, now how do we fight this stigma together? Next slide, please. Okay, now to handle this stigma together, what can you do for others? Now, the thing that you can do for others is you can help challenge the stigma by speaking up when you hear people around you making negative or wrong comments about mental illness. You are making better community if you will do this actually. You're providing a free education towards people who are really ignorant in terms of how or in terms of ignorance on how they say things, okay, because sometimes they speak without actually thinking of the things that they say. So you can actually doing something for them, okay, to really be more better person for the community. Now what can you do for yourself? Okay, the things that I have provided here are things that you can actually do for yourself. Number one, talk openly about mental health. Okay, you can actually choose the people, okay, where you want to talk about mental health. If you want to talk to professional, then that's good. If you want to talk to those people who you think are um, loyal to you or those people who you can trust, then good. Okay, as long as you can say that or you can speak about it freely because actually no man is an island. So ang importante diyan at least ma-feel mo na hindi ka nag-iisa. There's actually people who can actually listen to you, okay, and who can actually help you. Next is to educate yourself, okay? It's better to really provide education towards the things that you are unfamiliar with, Okay? Para din dun sa sinabi kanina ni Sir Jonathan to really avoid such self-diagnosing about an issue, and also in terms of preventing stigma, educating yourself can actually be leading into a proper way of talking about it, or how to handle this if you have encountered people who are actually being being the reasons for stigma. Okay, so you can actually help. Edu- Hindi naman talaga education doesn't stop when you graduate naman. It's a lifelong process. So every there are a lot naman din ng mga notes or ng mga things in the internet that can actually educate you in terms of fighting this stigma. Be conscious of your language, of course, very important as well. Okay, learning what to say before speaking it is actually good. Next is treat physical and mental health equally, because they can really damage you. Okay, they can both equally damage you. So you should also consider that mental health is similar to a physical health, because it's provide illnesses in your life. So consider them equal. Show compassion towards those with mental illness, because you are not really completely resilient. There's a possibility that um, mangyayari din yan sa'yo. So remember, what goes around comes around. So you should really consider providing compassion rather like doing the other way around. Next is let others know when they are stigmatizing mental health. So it's similar to really educating others. So in order for you to really let others be aware that they're stigmatizing, you should really educate yourself. And last, okay, this is actually last in my PowerPoint. Don't silently endorse stigma by saying nothing. Okay, mas masahol ka pa dun sa mga dun sa mga nagsistigma, kasi wala kang ginawa. Nakita mo na pero wala kang ginawa. So, speak up, make your voice be heard to break the silence of this stigma. Okay? That can also be kumbaga, it's already a eye opener for all those individuals, because sometimes there are people who tend to stigmatize people without knowing that they are already stigmatizing people. So and your breaking the silence is actually very helpful for them. Okay, so yeah, that's about it for stigma, and I believe I also provided my resources. So if you would like to check on it, you can. All right, so thank you very much. I guess that's it for my presentation for this edu trends. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much, Ma'am Abby, for that very informative presentation for everyone. No? It's true na let's avoid being ignorant, especially when we know that certain individual experiencing such mental health illness. So, ano tawag dito, let's work hand on hand kasi tayo lang naman yung tulong sa sarili natin, di ba? So, let's all break the silence kasi we know that everyone has a big role to play in this community. So, yan, once again, thank you, Ma'am Abby, for sharing your knowledge to everyone.
You're
And
welcome.
see
Looking
you
forward
sa,
sa open forum later.
yes, see you sa open forum later.
All right.
Okay, so for our next discussion, she's a guidance counselor of Jose Maria College, a registered guidance counselor, a licensed professional teacher, and a graduate of Masters in Counseling in the University of Immaculate Conception. Let us all welcome our very own Miss Maria Loisa Estrella. Good morning, Ma'am Loy.
Good morning, Ariel. Good morning, Sir Ariel.
Morning, Ma'am.
So we met
So,
again.
yes,
Virtually.
I'll give you the floor to present your topic. Go. Take it away, ma'am.
So my topic this morning is all about the culture and diversity about mental health. But before we will discuss that, let's define the terms. So we have three terms here. We have mental health, culture, and diversity. So next slide please. So when we talk about mental health, so this is according to the World Health Organization, and this was also given to us by Sir Jonathan kanina. So it's a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her own abilities. Okay, so a person can cope up with the normal stresses of life, can work productively, and is able to make contribution to his or her own community. So if ever we're not able to do the tasks that we are doing right now or in the future, so there is already something that we need to handle or we need to settle in ourselves. So that is our mental health. So mental health also is a fundamental to our collective and individual ability as humans. We think, we interact, we emote. Okay? Especially sa mga girls dyan na mahilig din sa K-drama, we emote when we watch those movies or those series. Okay? So with our mental health, we earn a living and we enjoy our life. So that typically we really need this one. So on this basis, the promotion, protection, and restoration of our mental health can be regarded as a vital concern of individuals, our communities, and our societies. And that is not only in the Philippines, but throughout the world. Okay? So our next term is, next slide, please. Culture. So when we talk about culture, according to James Bradley, an anthropologist, culture is an acquired knowledge people use to interpret, okay, experience and generate behavior. So with our culture as Filipinos, sabi nga kanina ni Ma'am Abby, we are resilient in almost everything. Okay? So sabi din kanina ni Sir Jonathan, kung pagod na, okay, we rest. Okay. An understanding of culture requires an understanding not only to language differences, but also to the differences in knowledge, perceptions, beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors. So when we talk about beliefs, about mental health, ang dami nating naiisip. 'Di ba? So ang dami nating stigma. So that's why nga, sabi ni Ma'am Abby kanina, we have to break the stigma. Okay? So, culture can be viewed as the values that members of a given group hold, the norms they follow, and the material goods that they create. So, definitely, our culture has a big impact in terms of our mental stability. Our next term is diversity. So, diversity is a range of human differences, including but not limited to our race, our ethnicity, gender identity, and sexual orientation, age, social class, physical ability or attributes, religious or ethical value system, national origin, and political belief. So that's why nga ngayon, 'di ba, ang dami nating iniisip kung sino yung iboboto, ano nang yung nangyayari sa sexualidad natin, 'di ba? Sinong mayaman, sinong mahirap. So we have those kinds. So because we have a diverse culture, different yung views din natin. So lahat-lahat diverse talaga siya. Okay? So the concept of diversity encompasses acceptance and respect. So that's why diversity means an understanding that each individual is unique. And no two individuals are of the same beliefs, are of the same um, tawag niyan, the same uh, knowledge about something else. So, in short, diverse talaga yung ating mundo, even ng ating pag-iisip. So, this can be along the dimensions of race, yung kanina sinabi ko kanina, okay, na yung physical abilities natin, the age, okay, the socioeconomic status, we have diverse meaning of that. Okay? So, the next slide will be what is cultural diversity and its impact to mental health. Okay? So, when we talk about that, cultural diversity has a very big impact to us. Okay? So, it becomes increasingly important issue in the whole world where interactions between cultures continue to grow exponentially. So meaning to say, dumadami yung ating learning about the mental health, dumadami na din yung iniintindi natin about that. Okay, so that's why uh, it is influenced by a number of aspects including nga yung class natin, yung beliefs natin, yung gender natin, okay? So, culture also influence our understanding of health and illnesses, modes of treatment, how are we going to be treated by our psychologists, by our psychiatrists or our counselor, as well as the health-seeking behavior such as the attitudes of the preventative and curative care. Yan, kasi meron tayo niyan at the end of our sessions. We have to have the curative care or yung mga after natin na mga gagawin. Attitudes to providers and expectations of the healthcare system. So, next slide please. Are critical elements of cultural diversity and mental health. Okay, so what are these critical elements? Number one, coping style. Okay? Stop muna dyan sa coping style. Okay? So, when we talk about coping styles, these are the ways that we cope with everyday problems and to more extremely types of adversity. So not only there are cultural variations in the types of stressors that people experience, but the assessment of stressors also varies, as do the choice of responses to our stressors. So meaning to say, iba-iba yung coping styles natin when we talk about our mental health. Okay? So hindi yung si client A the same sila ni client B, yun. Hindi naman din si client C pareho din ni client B. So kung paano natin i-cope yung ating mga stressor, ganun din yung iba't iba na coping styles. So when we talk, next one is treatment seeking patterns. Okay? So it also varies across cultures. 'Di ba nga sabi kanina na yung mga Filipinos are resilient in terms of the problems that they encounter. So yung treatment natin iba din sa ibang mga lahi. Okay? So people from ethnic minorities are less likely to seek mental health treatment and also more likely to present in crisis compared with the majority community. Kasi yung mga malalayong lugar, hindi masyado nila maintindihan kung ano yung pinagdadaanan ng isang tao. Kaya yung iba sa kanila hindi agad nadadiagnose o hindi nabigyan ng treatment. So, yung nasa let's say, city area, sila yung mas marami na naintindihan about the mental health. And in the event of that thing happen to them, so mas madali yung kanilang coping, mas madali yung kanilang treatment. Okay? Another one is our historical context. Okay? So noon, pag sinabihan tayo na, ay, nag-inarte ka lang. Okay? Kahit alam na natin that we are in parang problem already with our mental health, with yung pag-iisip natin, but because of the notion na ay nag-iinarte lang ako or nag-iinarte lang siya, okay, so meron tayong tendency na hindi na lang natin siya intindihin, okay, kasi mawawala lang. But also in terms of historical context, it plays a significant role in terms of how our mental health professional perceive and work with their clients across cultures. So kaya nga meron tayong multicultural counseling, okay, para maintindihan natin lalo yung ating clients or yung mga taong naghahanap ng tulong. The next one is racism. Alam naman natin yan, 'di ba, na meron din tayong mga problem with our race. Okay? So kung sino yung nasa lower race, sila yung ating parang sinasabihan na may problema or nagkakaroon tayo ng discrimination sa kanila kasi racism and discrimination are umbrella terms of referring to beliefs, attitudes, and practices that denigrate individuals or groups because of our phenotypic characteristics. So, in short, yung kulay ng skin natin, yung facial features natin, ganun. And with that, we tend to discriminate people. Okay? ay maitim siya, pangit siya, may mga ganyan tayo. And we don't think of the negative impact of those words towards that person or to those group of people. So in short, binibigyan natin sila ng notion na I need to change. Okay? So, hindi natin iniintindi na yung mental state nila or yung nararamdaman nila doon. The next one, the fifth one is biases and stereotyping. Okay? So, the same with number 4, okay, it is very important also because we have this kind of thinking na pag may problema tayo, hanapan lang natin ng solusyon without asking people kung ano yung pwede nating gawin. So, we tend to be biased. Okay? So, mas tutulungan natin yung ibang tao compared sa tulungan natin yung kilala natin na tao or na group. Okay? So, biases and stereotyping of cultural groups can impact or has a big impact on recovery also with the patient or the client. So effectiveness of healthcare intervention is compromised when health practitioners overlook or misinterpret, stereotype, or otherwise mishandle their encounters with those who might be viewed as different from them in their assessment, intervention, and evaluation planning processes. So as mental health advocate or um we have to be parang we have to take out of those biases and stereotyping because when we do that kind of thing, ang problema is hindi nagiging effective yung ating treatment na binibigay sa mga clients natin. So that's why when we also seek help, we also need to get out of our biases, okay? Para mas matulungan tayo. Next one, we have the gender. So gender also raises a range of considerations across different settings. So Philippines is a patriarchal country and sometimes we tend to say na kung lalaki ka, strong ka. Hindi ka pwedeng umiyak. Hindi ka pwedeng maging malamya. Hindi ka pwedeng maging weak. Okay? So that's why it's very inappropriate for us, especially sa mga male, na maging ganyan, maging lamya, maging iyakin. But in reality, we need to get out of that kind of notion or that kind of thinking because hindi tayo natutulungan kung ganyan yung iniisip natin. Okay? And sometimes you also have this kind of thinking that if we have female psychiatrists or female doctors who will take care of a male patient, meron din tayong thinking na hindi pwede. Kasi may ganito, may ganyan na mga ano. Okay? The next one is family. So it's another important consideration within our discussion about mental health and also with our culture and diversity because there are clear differences in the roles that family uh, may play an important one. Okay? So, syempre, sa family natin, sila yung unang nilalapitan natin. Sila yung una nating sinasabihan ng mga problema natin. However, there are times that clients will tell us na sila nga yung malalapitan natin una, pero sila naman din yung unang nagagalit. So we need to change that kind of thinking because when we have problems in our lives, ang family talaga yung una nating sasandalan, yung una nating sasabihan, yung unang magbibigay sa atin ng solution or ng comfort. Okay? The last one is the stigma and discrimination. So ito yung sinabi kanina din ni Ma'am Abby na there's a critical impact about the mental health and recovery. If we don't break the stigma, okay, andyan parati yung discrimination. So yung recovery natin mas lalong tumatagal because we tend to think of the stigma, we tend to think of to discriminate the person who has a problem, who has a mental health problem. Okay? So it is very important that we need to seek help from professionals who understand our situation. Okay? So Next slide, please. There are four ways culture can impact the mental health. Number one is the cultural stigma. So every culture has a different way of looking at mental health. Different talaga. Sa Western, mas accepted na siya masyado. Compared sa atin, meron pa rin tayong parang konting bias or meron pa rin tayong konting hindi naintindihan. That's why we tend to separate people with mental health conditions from the normal ones. So for many, there is growing stigma around the mental health, and the mental health challenges are considered a weakness, okay? Or something to hide. So hindi natin siya kailangan ipakita. Yun ang parang tinitignan natin parate. So this can make it harder for those struggling to talk about it openly and ask help. Kasi nga meron tayong bias, meron tayong stigma, discriminate natin sila, may racial discrimination din tayo. So may sinasabing wala kang karapatan na mag-inarte, wala kang karapatan nga na mag-isip ng ganyan, or wala kang karapatan na ito yung sasabihin mo. Parang ganun siya. So number two is understanding the symptoms. So culture can influence how people describe and feel about their symptoms. So it can affect whether someone chooses to recognize and talk about it, okay, such as yung mga physical symptoms, yan, yung mga emotional symptoms, or ano yung mga iniisip nila, ganun. So we have to understand that these symptoms may trigger into a more complicated mental health issues or mental health problems. Number three is community support. Okay? So cultural factors can determine how much more someone or how much support someone gets from their family, from the community, or the society itself. So when we talk about mental health, hindi lang yung family ang pwedeng tumulong sa atin. We can have our community, or we can have our community helpers, okay, such as our barangay health workers, yun siya, our clinic nurse, yan, sa doctors, ganun. So because of the existing stigma, okay, some of our minorities, hindi nila masyadong alam pa yung mental health, they are sometimes left behind, and they find it na yung mental health treatment and yung support na kailangan nila is konti lang, or hindi nila nagagamit or nakukuha. The fourth one is our resources. When looking for mental health treatment, you want to talk to someone who understands your situation or who understands your specific experiences and concerns. Okay? So it can sometimes be difficult or time-consuming to find these resources. However, with those resources, if you're able to find them, it can help you with your treatment options. Ano yung pwedeng gawin? For children, you can have the play therapy, ganun, or for adults, you can have somebody na mas experience, or such as the psychologists or psychiatrists or counselors, to talk about what is going on in your life. Okay? So, these are some of only the few culture ways na pwede nating gamitin. Okay? So, every culture and every person is different, and they face a very unique journey to recovery. So yun ang ano natin, ilagay sa isip natin. The next one is ways to be more culturally aware of our surroundings in terms of mental health. So number one is think beyond race and ethnicity. Okay? So a person's culture is shaped by more than the color of their skin or the way they dress. Okay? So yung iba kasi may sinusuot nila masyadong malaki sa katawan or masyado namang fit sa katawan. So iba-iba. So we have to think beyond those diversities. Okay? So it's shaped by the person's life experiences and traditions, which may be seen or unseen by our naked eye. So the next one is learn by asking. Okay? So don't be afraid to ask questions. It's very good to ask help, to seek help, to ask questions para mas malaman mo yung nararamdaman mo. Okay, sabi nga ni Sir Jonathan kanina, mali yung mag-self-diagnose. So again, don't be afraid to ask questions. People feel respected and appreciated when others take a genuine interest in who they are or ask an open-ended questions about their culture to learn more about the struggles or the things that happen to them. Okay. Next one, number three is make local connections. So find local organizations or venues that work with cultural groups. Okay? So at least naman with that, you will be able to find people who will help you out with what you are struggling. Okay? So these organizations are like advocacy groups, religious institutions, okay, colleges and social clubs. Yan. So those are some connections that you can find in your community. Number four is pay attention to nonverbal behaviors. So meaning behind body language can sometimes differ based on cultural norms. So based on the different cultures that we have, may iba na uh, nakasimangot lang, may problema na agad, hindi pwedeng may iniisip lang. May mga ganun tayo eh. So pay attention to how your body language is being perceived by those around you. So kung masaya ka ba, masaya ka na ba talaga or masaya ka lang kasi yun ang gusto mong ipakita sa kanila pero malungkot ka pala. Ganun. Next one is, I think this one is also helpful, okay, especially to some. Yung sa akin nga, medyo okay din ako nito. Exchange stories. Storytelling is a great way to share experiences that go beyond our culture. It initiates an open conversation by sharing a personal story or experience. Meron kasi tayong mga Pinoy, we are fond of sharing our life to others. Kahit hindi naman natin kilala yung mga tao, pero sinishare pa rin natin yung mga experiences natin or yung mga pinagdadaanan natin. So by with that, when doing that thing, it gives us parang is a short relief na yung bigat na nararamdaman natin is nasa-share natin sa iba. Okay? So, with that kind of parang experience, nasa-share mo yung kinaloob-looban mo sa taong hindi mo naman masyadong kilala and it makes you more content, more happy. Okay? So, next slide please. I'll end up my presentation with a quote coming from John F. Kennedy. Okay? Sabi niya dito, if we cannot now end our differences, at least we can help make the world safe for diversity. Kasi iba-iba nga yung ating pinanggalingan, iba-iba yung ating paniniwala. So we need to make out the world a better place or a safe place for everybody. Kasi para mas maintindihan natin lalo yung isa't isa because of our different cultural beliefs, different behaviors, different attitudes. So that's why we need to make our world a safe place for everybody. With that ends my presentation. And here are the resources kung saan ko nakuha yung mga ideas ko. And thank you for listening and watching.
Yan. Okay, so thank you so much, Ma'am Loy, for that very informative presentation na binigay mo sa aming lahat. Yes, we should foster cultural awareness para hindi lang naman yung self natin yung natutulungan natin, but of course, the others as well. Yung mga kaibigan natin, baka may mga kaibigan tayo or mga classmates na, are experiencing mental health problems. So at least we have a bit of an idea how to, extend our support, how to help them in many ways that we can, and and also nakuha ko din yung point ni Ma'am Loy na we should look beyond race, look beyond ethnics, look beyond culture, kasi in that way we know malalaman natin na we are all humans. We realize that we are all humans capable of experiencing such problems, especially right now in this time of pandemic na lahat naapektuhan. So, yun. So, again, once again, thank you so much, Ma'am Loy, for giving us your knowledge, if you're sharing your yung mga natutunan mo sa field ng mental health. Thank you so much. That's really a big help, lalong-lalo na sa mga viewers natin. So I know yung mga viewers natin, marami yung mga question, but please, reserve nyo muna yan because after this last presentation, may open forum session tayo. So once again, thank you so much, Ma'am Loy, and see you in our open forum later. Okay, so for our next presenter, she's a professor in BS Psychology program of 𝗂𝗟𝗡 College, also a registered psychometrician, a graduate and master's degree in psychology, and of course, a registered psychologist. Let us all welcome Miss 𝗦𝗧𝗜𝗚𝗠𝗧𝗜 Padilla. Good morning, ma'am.
Hello. Hi, Ariel. Nice to see you. Hello, everyone.
So
So
I'll
it's
give
good
you
to
now
be
the
back
floor,
in
ma'am.
JMC Trends. Okay,
Yes.
sure. All right. I'm still waiting for my presentation. Okay, so I hope everyone is having a good time. Okay. All right. So for my part, I will be talking about the privileges of mental health in the Philippines. So, kamusta nga ba yung mental health sa Philippines? So, sana ba tayo in terms of our implementation of mental health? So, ngayon ba nabibigyan na ba ng pansin yung mental health? So, how can we avail the services and so on? Okay? So, if you don't know, there's already a law, a mental health law. So, the Philippine Mental Health Act or the Republic Act number 11036. So, it is proposed more than 3 years ago. So, the Philippine Mental Health Act was passed in the Congress and Senate in 2017 and signed into law on June 21, 2018. So, prior to this bill, the Philippines were one of a minority of countries with no mental health legislation. So, because of that, clinicians lack the guidance on the legal and ethical aspects of the practice, and also patients' rights were not clearly defined. So, the passing of this bill is a major milestone in the history of psychiatry and psychology in the Philippines. So the bill is the first in the country's history that provides a rights-based mental health legislation. So it mandates for the provision of psychiatric, psychosocial, and neurological services in all hospitals and basic mental health services in community settings. So, as of now, compulsory treatment is limited to hospital settings, and the Act does not provide for compulsory community treatment. But of course, since it's still new, no, there's still a lot of room to improve and develop, especially the implementation of the mental health law, the Mental Health Act. Okay, so under its provisions, okay, the Philippine Mental Health Act protects the rights of patients as follows. So, of course, a right to freedom from discrimination. So, the right to protection from torture, cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment. The right to aftercare and rehabilitation, the right to be adequately informed about psychosocial and clinical assessments, the right to participate in the treatment plan to be implemented, the right to evidence based or informed consent, the right to confidentiality, and the right to counsel, among others. So before this one, right, before having this Mental Health Act, as what I have mentioned a while ago, wala pa talagang, hindi clearly defined kung ano ba talagang right ng mga patients or those people who is experiencing mga mental health conditions. So because of this law, so meron na sila na define na kung ano yung rights nila, and so they can exercise their rights. Okay? So the act also incorporates rights for concerned individuals. So it's also incorporating patient relatives and mental health professionals. So it's not only about the patient itself, but there's also the integration
or sinasali din sa treatment now yung relatives, the family members, and the mental health professionals. So, as defined, a mental health professional refers to a medical doctor, psychologist, nurse, social worker, or any other appropriately trained and qualified person with specific skills relevant to the provision of mental health services. So this is actually can be found on the section 4 of the act. So the act also highlights the need to provide psychosocial support to family members of the patient if required, and with informed patient consent to include them in the planning of treatment for the patient. So, yun nga yung na-mention ko kanina na sinasali na sa treatment plan yung family. Right? As what also Ma'am Lloyd discussed, diba? Especially we are in a collectivistic culture. Kasali talaga sa culture natin yung a big part of it is our relationship with our family and with people around us. So with this, so sinasali na siya sa treatment, and it also provides psychosocial support for the family. Kasi, 'di ba, hindi din madali yung experiences din ng family who has a member of the family who's suffering from a mental health condition. So, syempre, 'di ba, when someone in your family has this condition, you have to be extra understanding, patience. So, kailangan din ma-process or mabigyan ng support yung mga family members or yung mga immediate people na kasama ng patient. Okay, so because they also need to understand better the condition and how to properly adjust and handle the condition of their member. Okay, next. So it further recognizes the role of mental health professionals. So protecting their right to participate in mental health planning and development of services, and ensuring that they have a safe working environment, access to continuing education, and autonomy in their own practice. So with the passing of this act, so nabibigyan na din or na-recognize na din yung role talaga ng mental health professionals. So, syempre, mental health professionals, diba, marami yan, psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, and other trained professionals na trained sila for giving mental health service. So the act seeks to integrate mental health into the educational system by promoting mental health programs in schools and other organizations. So ito na din yung isa sa nilulook forward din natin, and kahit papaano na napapractice na din na there is already an integration sa schools, sa mga companies, diba? Especially with the passing of the law. So kaya nagkakaroon na ng mga mental health programs ang mga different organizations. So sa mga companies, meron silang mga mental health programs or activities for their employees. Then for the schools, diba, meron din silang mga separate mental health programs and activities for their employees and students. Kaya meron ng mga tinatawag, diba, mental health break, mga ganon. So it's also like acknowledging that, diba, na mental health is equally important din, okay, to our physical health. So this is really a good start, to really bringing this kind of conversations on the table. Okay. All right. So in keeping with the United Nations resolution, so there are principles for the protection of persons with mental illness and for the improvement of mental health care. So to which the Philippines is a signatory. So the Philippines Mental Health Act of 2017 has several core principles. So this includes, of course, the definition of the mental illness. So when we say mental health condition, it refers to a neurologic or psychiatric condition that is characterized by the existence of a recognizable, clinically significant disturbance in an individual's cognition, emotional regulation, or behavior that reflects a genetic or acquired dysfunction in the neurobiological, psychosocial, or developmental processes underlying mental functioning. So I think it was also discussed, diba, ni Sir Jonathan a while ago, yung, diba, the diagnostic criteria that can be found in the DSM. So, ito yon. So, if you meet those criteria in a specific illness or disorder, so, yun, yung tawag na you are clinically diagnosed with this kind of disorder. So, the determination of whether a mental health condition exists that shall be based on the best available scientific and medical evidence. Of course, because it is evidence-based, so kailangan talaga meron talagang right scientific and medical evidence that you are really having this mental health condition. Okay, so kailangan meron talagang diagnosis from professionals, and you really undergo different assessments to have that kind of diagnosis. Okay, then another one is the informed consent. Okay, so informed consent, it refers to consent voluntarily given by a service user to a plan for treatment. So a patient must give prior informed consent before receiving treatment or care, including the right to withdraw such consent. So this is very, especially for those people patients who can still give that consent. So, kailangan talaga may informed consent before they undergo to a certain treatment, okay, or intervention. So, in the case na that patient could not or decide on her own or his or her own, so meron namang pwede naman mga legal authorized representative or mga immediate family members like parents, spouse, na pwedeng mag-decide for the patient. Okay, so in event lang na the patient will no longer be able to give their consent because of the condition that they have. Okay, so pwede yung mga legal or authorized representative nila. But for those who can, so syempre yung consent talaga will be coming from the patient or the person or the client. Okay, so there are also other considerations. So the act also addresses the protection of the rights of persons with mental disorders in mental health facilities. Okay, then protection of minors, the provision of resources for mental health facilities, the role of community and culture, review mechanisms providing for the protection of the rights of offenders with mental disorders, procedural safeguards protecting the rights of persons with mental disorders, protection of confidentiality. So it means that their information or whatever diagnosis or information that was taken from them, so hindi siya basta-basta na talagang nililay out sa public or pinapublicize. Okay? So that is the right of confidentiality of the patient. So yung mga psych reports na in-undergo ng patient, so hindi siya pwedeng ibigay sa public without their consent. So pag may nakita kayong mga reports na open sa public, na walang consent, so hindi siya pwede. It's unethical yon. Okay? So it's sinisira niyo yung protection of confidentiality with nilalabag niya yung rights of confidentiality of the patients. And then of course, the standards of care and treatment, including involuntary admission and consent to treatment. Okay, so I know that marami pa talagang kailangang gawin or improve in the implementation of the Mental Health Act or the Mental Health Act, but this is really a good start already. Na meron ng ganitong, the rights are already defined so that maiwasan na din talaga yung discrimination, yung mga na-discuss kanina ng mga previous speakers, the discrimination, the stigma towards those people who are experiencing a mental health condition or a mental health illness. Okay? All right, next is the mental health program. So because of this one, so the law establishes the Philippine Council for Mental Health or the PCMH So it is a policy-making advisory body mandated to develop a national, multi-sectoral strategic plan, mental health, and to ensure its implementation through a monitoring and evaluation of policies and guidelines. So because of this, so meron na talagang mental health program na nasa government. So this is chaired actually by the Department of Health, so DOH. So if you visit yung website ng DOH, so meron na silang separate section for the National Mental Health Program. So nandoon nakasulat yung kanilang mga vision, mission, objectives, and the programs that they are already planning or slowly implementing. So so pwede ma-check din doon sa website ng DOH. So in the description of the Department of Health, so mental health and well-being is a concern of all. So it's addressing concerns related to MNS, so the mental, neurological, and substance use, contributes to the attainment of the SDGs, so Sustainable Developmental Goals. So through a comprehensive mental health program that includes a wide range of promotive, preventive, treatment, and rehabilitative services that is for all individuals across the life course, especially those at risk of and suffering from the MNS disorders. So it's integrated in various treatment settings from community to facility that is implemented from the national to the barangay level and backed with institutional support mechanisms from different government agencies and CSOs. And we hope to attain the highest possible level of health for the nation because there is no universal health care without mental health. So yun yung description under the Department of Health. So they're really trying to have these programs. Nagsa-start na ng mga meetings and the planning of the programs na talagang meron ng access into mental health services. So not only from the national level but also towards the barangay level. So easy access na lang ng siguro mga services, mga gamot, consultations kasi 'di ba yun talaga yung mga problema why people some has hesitations about to seek mental health seek help from professionals because mahal ang consultation, mahal ang gamot, so they cannot really afford, so may iba na they can afford. So because of these programs, meron ng somehow like access with free medicine. So in the government hospitals na may binibigay na mga free medicines, and then also in government hospitals, if you go into psychiatry department nila, so may mga consultations naman sila with a minimal fee. Okay, so I think sa SPMC they have consultations with psychiatrists. So I think 100 pesos lang yung consultation fee, if I'm not mistaken. So can really be much affordable siya. Okay? So yun yung tina-try to really have that kind of programs na ma-reach talaga sa barangay level. And so that everyone can have access and ma-avail din yung mga services. All right? Okay, so next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. All right. So if you don't know, so for those people na diagnosed with a mental health condition, so you can avail actually a PWD card or persons with disability card. So this ID card is used for persons with disabilities or PWDs in the Philippines in order to receive the benefits and discounts as mandated by the law. So you can actually avail yung mga benefits ng mga PWD. So if you are clinically diagnosed. So kasi sinasabi nga nila, bakit ako mag-avail ng PWD, 'di ba? Na wala naman akong physical disability. So I am I qualified for that, for a PWD card? So Filipinos with a permanent disability and medical conditions that are either visible or not, which interfere with their interactions in society, can apply for a PWD ID card. So actually merong mga doon na klaseng mga disabilities. So under that, kung to as a basis kung you can avail the PWD card. And isa na doon is having psychosocial disability. So this is a category that includes those who have psychological and social problems. So that can leave them or the sufferer unable to do what he or she normally does. So this includes mga person with bipolar disorder, with depression, with ADHD, epilepsy, and other long-term and recurring mental or behavioral issues. So, aside from that, meron din yung mental disability or illness disorder. So, kasali dyan yung mga persons with schizophrenia or diagnosed with schizophrenia. Okay, so pwede yan siya if your someone is clinically diagnosed in your family. So para ma-enjoy din yung benefits because meron silang later on I will discuss kung ano ba yung benefits if you have that PWD ID card. Okay, so magagamit din talaga siya. Okay, so how to apply for a PWD ID card? Right? Next slide. Okay, so listed below are the requirements. So you just need to have 2 recent 1x1 ID pictures with the names and signatures or thumb marks at the back of the picture. Then 1 valid ID, latest medical certificate or clinical abstract that confirms disability condition from licensed private or government clinic or hospital-based medical professional. So in the case of psychosocial disability, so pwede nyo pakita yung medical certificate from your psychiatrist or psychologist ba na you are diagnosed with this condition. And then a completed PWD registration form from any of the following. So it can be from the Office of the Mayor, Office of the Barangay Captain, National Council on Disability Affairs or its regional counterpart, Department of Social Welfare and Development Offices, participating organizations with Memorandum of Agreement with the DOH, and DOH online registration. Okay. Next, what are the benefits of the PWD ID card? So PWD ID holders are entitled to the following benefits. So first, 20% discount and VAT exemption from the following. So hotel accommodations, restaurants, and recreation centers. Okay, so kakain ka sa restaurant, so you can show that ID para meron kang 20% discount. So admission fees charged by theaters, cinema houses, concert halls, circuses, carnivals, and other similar places of culture, leisure, and amusement. Then also medicines in all drugstores, especially if you have medications or a family member who has a mental health condition na may mga medication. So malaking tulong din to because there is a discount in medicine sa lahat ng drugstores. Then medical and dental services, which includes diagnostic, laboratory, and professional fees, domestic air and sea travel fares, public railways, skyways, and bus fares, funeral and burial services to the death of a PWD, educational assistance through the provision of scholarships, grants, financial aids, subsidies, and other incentives, the same benefits and privileges that are given by the Government Service Insurance System or the GSIS and the SSS or the Social Security System and Pag-ibig. And then special discounts for the purchase of basic commodities as determined by the Department of Trade and Industry, the DTI, and the Department of Agriculture. So also entitlement to use express lanes for persons with disability in all commercial and government establishments and queuing priority. So, yun yung mga ilang benefits if you have this PWD ID card. So, if you know someone who is diagnosed, or if you yourself is watching is clinically diagnosed, so don't be afraid to also, enjoy or avail the benefits of the PWD, kasi makakatulong din yan siya in your treatments. So the medicines, may mga discounts yan siya. So it's also one way, 'di ba? To also break the stigma na hindi ibig sabihin na because I avail of this is that ano na talaga ako, I'm totally disabled. It's not like that, okay? Because it's your right also. Okay? Especially having this mental health act already, 'di ba? May mga rights na tayo, mga patients or persons who is experiencing mental health conditions. So again, remember that mental health is a right and not a privilege. So we should know what are our rights para maiwasan din 'di ba yung abuse, yung mga discrimination, yung mga stigma around, 'di ba? And we can start this kind of being open, mga conversations about regarding mental health, and with the continuous efforts of our government officials, mga mental health professionals, 'di ba? Mas ma-improve pa yung implementation ng mga programs, mental health programs na maka-avail lahat ng Filipinos in the near future. So we are really trying to make that available to all. Okay? So ngayon naman nagtutulungan naman yung mga government agencies, not only the DOH, but they're also in partnership with other agencies like DepEd, DOLE, CHR, that DILG. Okay, so they work hand in hand so that mas maging maayos pa yung implementation of all these mental health programs. Okay? So that's all for it. So remember that it's mental health awareness and we should end the stigma. Okay? Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Ma'am Murphy, for sharing to everyone what the law says about mental health. That is really important, no? Kasi as you have mentioned earlier, mental health is not a privilege, but instead it's a right. So we have to know our rights. Kasi nga, finally, we have this the Philippine Mental Act, which is Republic number 11036, which is an act establishing a national mental health policy for the purpose of enhancing the delivery of integrated mental health services, promoting and protecting the rights of persons utilizing psychosocial health services, appropriating funds, and other purposes. And dapat ito malaman ng lahat kasi lahat tayo nakaka-avail. We have our own privileges in especially in accessing mental health services and other
services,
programs.
programs, yeah.
Which is highly important, especially sa panahon ng pandemya. So once again, Ma'am Mervic, thank you so much for your expertise, for sharing us your knowledge. Yan. So for our next for the next part of the program, we'll be having our open forum session. So I guess lahat ng mga viewers natin are willing to ask something to our speakers. And then I know for sure that our four speakers who have presented their respective topics have delivered it well. So if you have any questions, just comment. Tapos the technical will just post it on the screen so that our speakers can easily and directly answer all your queries or questions. Okay, so ayan, so kung may mga questions tayo na pwede nating sagutin, ayan, i-post natin sa ating screen and then our speakers will just answer those questions na nakapost. Okay, so may mga questions ba tayo dyan? So since we are now in the open forum session, I would like to invite all the speakers to be on screen para makita tayo ng mga viewers natin. Ayan. And Sir Jonathan and si Ma'am Loy. Ayan, okay. So hello po mga mental health professionals. Hello.
Hello. Hello again.
Hi.
Hi, fellow professional.
Yes po.
Hello.
It's so good to be back.
Online.
Actually, yes. Parang ang tagal din natin, no? Parang may na-post kanina. Parang, okay, from Mark Paul, Canada, be with someone who could admire you and can understand you whatever situation you've been through. Okay, be with someone who could admire you and can understand you whatever situations you've been through.
Hmm.
Mm. Pero, pero what if, ma'am, yung someone na yan is no longer parang admiring sa'yo, di ba? So then, what if that someone is nasa point na nahihirapan na siyang intindihin ka? So, paano, pinanghugutan. Paano yung
Hugot
gano'n?
yan.
Diba? Paano yung gano'n? So, what if, parang feeling ko, isa din sa problem ng mga, yung mga tao na nagdedwell too much in their problem is yung overthinking. Yung parating iniisip na, what if ganito, what if ganyan? Diba? So, thank you so much, Mark Paul, Canada, for reminding us to be with someone na ina-admire namin, to be with someone na mas nakakaintindi sa atin. Billions of people, of course, madami dyan, na handang makinig, na handang tumulong, di ba?
Yes.
So may mga questions mo tayo dyan? Again, for Mark Paul, Canada, never afraid to tell what you feel deep inside. Thus, you must tell it to the person whom you truly trust, like our parents. They can help our problems at any time. And remember, no friends can help us but our parents and, of course, our Almighty Father. Yes, that's true. Oh, thank you so much, Mark Paul. That's true. Pero, ma'am, what if hindi si parents yung agad-agad nating malalapitan? Ano yung pwede nating gawin?
Para kanina yung question.
Anyone?
All.
To anyone?
So to anyone, from you po, kahit sino po sa inyo, bato-topic na lang po tayo siguro. Kasi sabi niya, the person whom you truly trust, yung parents daw, yung family, and then hindi naman lahat, di ba? We know that, hindi natin yan madadeny. May mga tao talagang hindi nila agad-agad malalapitan yung family nila. But if that's the case, ano ba yung pwedeng gawin ng isang individual na hindi agad malalapitan niya yung pamilya niya once he or she needs a mental health support? From our guidance counselor, Ma'am Loy.
Unahin talaga. I think we need to hindi siya think, no? If ever we cannot ask or tell our parents about things that happened to us, you can go to your go-to friend. Yan, di ba? May mga go-to friend man tayo. So you can share your insights, you can share what is happening to you, kung ano yung nararamdaman mo. Now, if ever that go-to person is parang hindi mo agad masabihan kasi syempre may biases pa rin tayo, 'di ba? You can go to your pinaka-close na teacher, 'di ba? Or instructor or professor na alam mo na malalapitan siya, masasabihan mo ng problema mo or yung mga nararamdaman mo. If that's the case talaga na walang mapuntahan kahit doon sa 3 or 4 na nasabi or na-share ko ngayon, you can go directly to your guidance facilitators or counselors kasi sila actually wala talagang bias. Yan. Kasi nga facilitators and counselors are mental health advocates also. So they really can help you out with what is happening to you or mas mag-guide kayo lalo nila on what to do para naman yung ating bias or yung stigma natin ma-cure din siya at the same time.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much, Ma'am Loy. So si Ma'am Abby. Sabi ni Ma'am Loy, wala daw mga bias yung mga mental health professionals. Pero I know Ma'am Abby may bias. Pero sa K-pop, tong bias niya eh. Pero sa K-pop world, tong mga bias niya. But anyways, yes, Ma'am Abby.
Ang corny ng joke mo. Pero yeah, I will
Please
actually
stop.
agree. I will actually agree with the statement provided by our guidance counselor because totally naman talaga there are some stories or there are some concerns that you cannot really personally tell your parents, especially if your parents are your problem, 'di ba? So medyo mahirap din 'yon. So you need to have somebody who is consider your go-to, okay, to really share your concerns and your problems, something like that. And I believe that if you have some concerns that just say you think that these concerns will not be addressed by your go-to friends or your parents or anybody that you can trust, you can really talk to a mental health professional or a mental health officer that is close to you, like the guidance counselors or psychologists that na malapit sa'yo. They can actually be helpful without any biases because that's actually the practice to really provide a good ambience in terms of releasing your concerns, and they will as professionals they would really help in terms of dealing with your concerns. So yun.
Ayan. So, thank you so much, Ma'am Abby.
You're
Ayan.
welcome.
So, how about from Ma'am Mirvic? Parang ano yung takeaway natin, di ba? Sa
Mm.
discussion na to.
Just like what everyone said, but I also agree with that. But for if you are like the person na you're going through something, so kasi yung stigma, it's also start with ourselves. If we don't really like be open about it, or parang kung hindi tayo ganun ka-accepting about what we feel, what we think, so doon nagsa-start na nagkaka-stigma din because we create our own stigma na hindi ako magpapa-guidance kasi pag magpapa-guidance ako, there's something wrong with me. 'Di ba may mga ganong tayong iniisip? That's why ayoko magpa-guidance kasi pag magpapa-consult ako baka sabihin na may disorder na ako, ganon. So it really begins with us. So if we are really more like accepting or be more open about this one, so what we think, what we feel, and recognizing that we need help. So hindi naman yung necessary yung help talaga is because you have mental health disorder or something like that, but because siguro may problem ka with adjustments and you need guidance, ganon. So pwede naman ganon. So it's really acknowledging first, that there's really something that you cannot handle anymore and you need someone or more professional ba to help you. So that's for me.
Okay. So, thank you so much, Ma'am Mirvic. Ayan. I guess my questions from Mark Paul Canada. May isa siyang question. I am introvert person and when it comes to social life with friends, nahihirapan ako makipag-mingle po. So, how to handle po with this situation po? Ang daming po. Opo. So, ayan. I guess
Very polite.
Yes. Parang nagbabasa ko dapat po, opo, ganun. So let's start with Sir Jonathan. Yes, sir.
Actually, ano siya, ano ba, nakaka-stress ba? Ang gusto ko malaman is nakaka-stress ba sa kanya ang pagiging introvert or ano ba? Kasi
parang nahihirapan siyang, kasi introverted daw siya, so I guess parang nahihirapan siya makipag-mingle sa ibang tao. Tapos gusto niya na sigurong, makipag-interact. Nahihirapan nga lang siya. So, paano niya ma-overcome yung, the mindset of having difficulty with dealing with others in order for him na, makapag-interact na sa iba.
Okay, so if that would be the case, siguro kailangan natin malaman muna kung ano yung cause or ano yung possible cause, why is it na parang kasi kung i-base ko siya sa statement niya kasi para siyang yung parang I am an introvert person when it comes to social life, with friends, nahihirapan ako makipag-mingle po. How to handle po with this situation? Well, actually, in that case, you need to talaga, involve yourself in the social situations. Ganun lang. Pero at this point, if yung kailangan niya talagang yung parang well me on my part, honestly, I am an introverted person. Yeah. Hindi ako masyadong nakikipag-mingle sa ibang something like that. But anyway, perhaps dapat I suggest hindi man ako nape-pressure actually kung hindi sila makikipag sa akin. Pero what I mean is that yung ang gusto ko lang kasing malaman what cause, ano ba talaga ang point kung bakit ano ba ang point kung bakit nape-pressure siya kung hindi siya nakikipag-mingle sa ibang tao, kung nakikipag-mingle siya sa ibang tao. So,
parang it's the first step is to know what's the problem.
Oo.
Para to come up with a solution bakit may ganitong problema. So
yeah, pero
yes,
ang first approach siguro niyan is kailangan niya talagang i-practice niya yung self niya or ano niya yung social life niya. Okay?
Take smaller
Yes.
steps.
Yes.
Yeah.
So hindi
One
kasi
step at a time.
one step. Because if like an introvert person, mahirap talaga to really parang big crowd kaagad. So if hindi ka agad into a big crowd, so unti-unti like 1 or 2 people, 3 people, paunti-unti hanggang he or she can handle already na large crowd.
Yes.
So unti-unti lang siya. So it's a process pa rin, it's a process.
Huwag biglain.
Yeah.
Yes. So ayan, thank you so much Sir Tan and Ma'am Murphy. Yan, from next question from Clara Jane Catalan. So how do you deal with intimidation? I always get intimidated. That's why it is hard for me to socialize. Yung mga nai-intimidate dyan. Yan. So Ma'am Abby, paano po ba to, Ma'am Abby?
Sandali, hindi ako get over sa gate. Kaninong gate?
Maganda yung JMC gate natin, ha? Wag ano. Ang ganda,
Oo,
no?
sobrang ganda.
Yes, of course. So, paano ba yan? Paano ba mag-deal ng intimidation?
Actually, you can say that intimidation has a way of really stunting an individual, both professionally and for professional growth. However, sometimes we suffer with this, like, because of intimidation, we tend to not be inclusive with other people, or we tend to like isolate ourselves. So, in order to actually assist us with this, there are some things that can be helpful. Like, for example, mentally prepare yourself well ahead of time before interacting with persons who intimidates you. This can also be pwede din to siya to be used when you are an introvert person who is considered to be introvert, and then you want to socialize with other people. You can actually mentally prepare yourself na, okay, I am going out, I will be dealing with different people. Okay, and managing that and also preparing yourself can really lessen these intimidations that you might feel, and at the same time the worries that you will feel when you're going to socialize. So at the same time, okay, try to also tell yourself that for all the other person's accomplishments or abilities, they're human. They're still human. Everyone still makes mistakes. It's just that you might not be aware of all of theirs, because that could also be considered kasi hindi mo lang naman talaga alam. Baka meron din silang problema. Hindi lang nila sinasabi sa'yo. Okay? And yeah. But, also you can also try to like practice with others. Okay, try to speak or try to talk more with others who you're comfortable with before really approaching other individuals who you consider are intimidating, and who you consider may cause you to like be triggered in terms of your anxieties or towards your worries. Maganda din yung sinabi nila, by the way, ni Ma'am Mervic at saka ni Sir Jonathan, in terms of dealing. Take one step at a time. But also try to identify, to add dun sa sinabi ni Sir Jonathan, try to identify what triggers you to be problematic in terms of socializing with others. Kasi not all introverts are actually not happy when they are alone. Most of the time, people who are considered introverts are quite happy, but they actually still needs to socialize. So ganon. Okay, so I just hit two words na lang siguro para ma-address yung sa introverted at saka yung sa intimidation.
Okay. So thank you so much, Ma'am Abby. Yeah, thank you
You're
so much for
welcome.
sharing the answer. So next, Ma'am Loy. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, for me, how are you going to deal with intimidation? So, first one, you avoid taking your behavior personally or yung behavior sa ibang tao. Make it sure lang na yung nararamdaman mo is really the intimidation na part or kasi sometimes na-intimidate tayo sometimes, 'di ba, because of jealousy or gusto nating gayahin, 'di ba? So, um, let's avoid taking that behavior personally. Let's be more objective with the person or let's be more objective with the situation para hindi tayo agad na-intimidate. The next one is siyempre nafi-feel natin kasi we are all human, 'di ba? Sometimes nga even professionals are also intimidated, 'di ba, with other professionals. So, you keep your distance. Kung hindi mo makontrol yung nararamdaman mo, stay away or keep at least, 'di ba, sa COVID-19 to 1 to 2 meters yung distance natin, yung layo natin sa isang tao. So, ganun din yung gagawin natin. Let's move a little bit sa person na na-intimidate tayo para mapangalagaan din natin yung ating mental health. Ganun. The next one is kung hindi mo talaga ma-handle yung intimidation mo sa isang bagay, sa isang situation or sa isang tao, consider talking to your counselor or facilitator and then move with the process. Kung saan nagsimula yung mga ganitong feelings, yung mga intimidating feelings. Kasi lahat naman talaga may pinagmulan, 'di ba? Yung iyak nga natin pag nanonood tayo ng K-drama, meron naman talaga siyang pinagmulan, 'di ba, Ma'am Abby? Hindi naman agad na uiyak kapag start pa lang ng episode 1. 'Di ba? So, may pinagmulan yung intimidation. So, consider talking to your counselor, to your facilitator, or kung ano na talaga, to your therapist, kung meron naman kayo. And then, I think the last one, you can have, is start looking for opportunities. Look for the brighter side of things. Tignan mo kung yung intimidation mo is really for that particular situation or just because may nangyari kaya na-intimidate ka sa taong yan o sa sitwasyon na yan. Okay? And with how to deal with yung kanina, yung sa introvert, kasi pinagdaanan ko din yan before. Yung sinabi ni Ma'am Mervic is, take the process. At least one person, two persons, hanggang sa maging group na kayo. Okay? Para at least naman makagain ka din ng friends and makasocialize ka dahan-dahan.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay. Thank you so much, Ma'am Lo. Yes. That's why I'm so grateful kasi I was working with these kind of people na hindi masyado intimidating pag nakatrabaho mo sila. Even though we form different bond outside the workplace, pag nasa workplace kasi parang you have I mean intimidation is also good kasi parang you are paying respect to the person you are interacting with, meaning na you are setting the limit, you are setting the boundaries.
Boundaries.
Yes, because this person is parang
High end.
you know iba yung level nyo parang you have to set your own place and kailangan mo ding bigyan ng own place yung taong nakiki-interact mo. So may good ano tawag ito, good result din naman yung intimidation at some point. Pero pag yung yun nga lang pag hindi na manage ng sobra that already affects your natawag ito work productivity.
Performance.
Yes, performances. Parang may problem na. I guess may dapat nang gawin in order for you na to have a mentally stable natawag itong mindset in terms of working with different professionals, may iba na senior na, then kailangan mo talagang, hindi naman kailangan ma-intimidate, pero you have to pay respect on their degrees. Yan. So, ayun, nakaka-intimidate naman yung iba, pero pag labas na sa work, wala na. Wala na intimidation. Pero of course, kailangan nating alamin yung mga, ano tawag yun, know your place.
Mm-mm.
Need to know my place also, and they have to know their place also. So yun lang. So thank you so much again, Clara Jane Catalan, for that question. From Mark Paul again, Canada, I always talk to camera like vlogging so that I could call myself po, ma'am and sir. That is how I found myself peaceful po. Ayan. So whatever you think that is good for your mental state, then do that one. Kasi yun naman yung goal natin, di ba, is to have a good mental state. Kung ang pagwa-watch ng K-drama is nakakatulong sa inyo, then nakakapagpasaya sa inyo, then do that one. Then if yung paglalaro ng Mobile Legends is, nakakapagpasaya sa inyo, then do that one. Wag lang sobra-sobra na. Yung academic natin naapektuhan na. We have also to set limit. Kailangan natin mag-set ng, time management. Kailangan din yan. May oras na dapat gawin to, may oras na dapat gawin to. So, you will have to balance. Mental state is also need of balance, diba? So, I would like to remind all our viewers, especially J. Marians, to please fill out the attendance and evaluation link that is posted on comment section. Ayan. I guess
Ariel,
Yes, ma'am.
pasensya na ha, I just want really to add on something doon sa sinabi ni Mark Paul. Because if yung sa camera, it's actually a
Yes.
good form of sublimation. If it lessen your anxiety, it's a good form naman then. It's helpful for you. And if you think that vlogging and talking to your camera can actually your way or your medium of really connecting to the society, then actually that's good. So you're already starting to socialize with people with the medium of using your vlogging skills and your camera. So continue na lang, i-continue talaga niya because it's actually a good form of really trying to include yourself in the society as an introvert, as a person who is considered as an introvert.
Ayan. So, I guess para mag-start na tayo ng vlogging, Ma'am Abby.
Ay, ano yung vlog
Introvert
natin?
ka ba?
Ayan. So, next question.
Introvert ka ba? Parang, kasi, ang hirap sabihin na experience ko yan, pero hindi talaga.
Okay, for our next question from Donabel Pascual. Many people with mental illness want to isolate themselves from the world because of fear of social stigma and discrimination. So what can you advise them not to worsen the situation? I guess let's go with Ma'am Mervic.
Me?
Online quiz.
Online quiz?
Actually, it's online recitation.
Ilang points po itong essay
Ganon.
question na ito?
Nag-lag? Okay.
Ay, actually, sige, let's give time to Ma'am Bervic. Ma'am Bervic, let's greet first siguro si Donabel. Belated happy birthday.
Oh, yeah. Happy
Yes.
birthday, Donna.
Yes. Pa-virtual cake ka naman dyan. Okay, Ma'am Mervic, go.
Well, for me, yan yung sinabi ko, di ba? The stigma begins with ourselves. So, there is a stigma because yun yung parang ano din natin, no, what we also believed in. So, first is really overcoming that kind of fear sa sarili natin. So, that's why, di ba, there are other people na may mga mental health conditions sila. They're really starting to talk, they're starting to express, they're starting to start this kind of conversations. Nagiging advocates din sila because they want to overcome that fear of the stigma that they are going through. And you have just to need to do the first step. So ano ba yung first step na kailangan ko gawin para ma-overcome tong fear na to? Siguro yung iba, first step is contacting a therapist. So maybe ganon, yun yung first step mo to overcome that one. Kasi yung stigma mo, pag magta-therapy ako, baliw ako, or there's something wrong with me. So to overcome that, okay, I'll contact a therapist and let's see what's gonna happen. So it's a first step. And if the session goes well, so then mo realize na there's nothing bad pala in a therapy. When you go to a therapy, when you meet a therapist, it's not bad. Okay? It's not something that you have to be fearful of. So for me, it's really overcoming your own fear, overcoming your own stigma. Yung stigma na create mo sa sarili mo about this one, about mental health, about these issues, yun talaga, it's really overcoming that one. Because what you can control only is yourself, the response that you have, the response that you can do, 'di ba? Yung mga responses mo. You cannot control what other people think of it. Kung ano yung opinion sa ibang tao, hindi mo yan control. Kasi yun yung opinion nila, yun yung perception nila. Your only control is how do I perceive mental health? How do I perceive this situation? How would I respond to this one? How would I overcome this stigma? So yun yung kailangan mong i-ano sa sarili mo, that you have to first overcome it for yourself. So because if you've overcome it and if you become an advocate of it, makikita yan ibang tao, people will see how did you overcome that, how you became strong despite all of the things that happened to you, 'di ba? Magiging inspiration ka, and then you will be the voice, 'di ba? Magiging maging model ka na, okay, nakaya niya 'to, so kaya ko rin. Yung mga gano'n. Kaya marami na ngayon yung naglalabasan ng mga tao who's very active in expressing their advocacies in mental health. Kasi yung iba talaga first hand na experience nila yun. They are clinically diagnosed, yung may mga pinagdaanan talaga sila mga trauma, depression, gano'n. But see where they are now, 'di ba? Because they overcome the stigma that they created sa sarili din nila.
Yeah.
So yun, that's for me.
Ayan. So, thank you so much, Ma'am Mervy. So, next, point of view naman ni Sir Tan.
Okay, so when it comes to that matter, Miss Donabel, actually, people nowadays are starting to accept naman, di ba, na mental illness do really exist, right? So with that, compared before, di ba, medyo hindi tayo, exposed with that or something, sort of, hindi tayo medyo educated regarding with that matter ba, or some sort of hindi natin hindi natin siya tanggap, okay, sa society, unlike today, right? So with that idea, of course, and accepted na siya sa society, and then at the same time, yung process naman ng treatment is there is no need to publicize, right? So with that idea, there is no reason for you na kanang you need to isolate yourself, especially nowadays. Kasi nga, as I said, accepted na siya sa society na mental illness do really exist. Okay? So it needs to be addressed, and it doesn't need to be publicized when it comes to giving treatments. Okay? You can actually directly call a mental health professionals, okay, to do some sort of treatment, therapeutic treatment, something like that. Yan po.
Yan, yes, that's true. We are now parang taking one step at a time in recognizing mental health, in recognizing mental illnesses, and especially knowing that mental health is important as physical health pala. So what's good also, marami ng mga agencies, different agencies, government and private agencies are practicing. Not natin may tataw to mental health break. Ayan, yung school natin, di ba, yung JMC is nagpa-practice tayo ngayon ng mental health break, which is very good kasi kailangan ng isang tao mag-rest from napakahirap na work and from a very loaded ng tawag nito, tasks. And, we are just humans. Kailangan din nating mag-rest for a moment. So, yan. I guess wala na tayong mga questions, no? So, thank you so much once again to all our speakers who have shared their expertise and knowledge to give insights about what mental health really is, what stigma, culture, privilege, diversity in relation to mental health. So, thank you so much once again. So, for our next step, please allow me to, we'll just present to you, the certificate of appreciation. So please allow me to read the citation first. Let's now present the certificate of appreciation. Yan, so baka may pa-honorarium dyan si Office of the Guidance Center, no? So, ayan, 10% lang po ako, mga ma'am, sir. Opo. Chat lang po ako after this one po. So, kailangan din natin isa yan sa mga nagpapatulong sa atin na magkaroon ng mental health state, 'di ba? Yung Ma'am Abby,
Extrinsic motivation.
yes. Alam mo na yan, Ma'am Abby, no? So, chat-chat lang po tayo after this one. So saan na ba yung certificate natin, no? No? So, I've heard, babalik na daw tayo sa face-to-face setup next year. Ready na ba tayo, mga teachers? Hello po, mga teachers po. Opo. Hello po.
No comment.
Hello?
Ay, no comment. So, you mean di pa ready?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hello po, Sir Floyd.
Yes,
Ah,
yes.
okay.
Yes, Sir
Yes.
Floyd.
Okay, I see. So, may I read the citation for the certificate? So, segue muna ako Kasi
Yes,
hindi
sir.
mabasa ni Sir Ariel. Okay, sige. Jose Maria College, Philippine-Japan Friendship Highway sa Davao City. Office of the Guidance Center, Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to Jonathan B. Ferrer, RPM, for his selfless service and sharing his knowledge and expertise as resource speaker in the webinar Stigma, Culture, Privilege, Diversity, and Mental Health during the GMC EduTrends live stream program spearheaded by the Guidance Center. So given this 29th day of October 2021 at the Jose Maria College, Philippine-Japan Friendship Highway sa Davao City, Philippines. So signed by Head of the Guidance Center, Maria 𝗦𝗧𝗜𝗍𝗓, RGC LPT MIC, Office Director Dennis 𝗓𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗓, and also Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Marietta A. Muñez. Okay, next one is Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to Abigail Grace V. Escobedo, RPM 𝗚𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗏, for her selfless service in sharing her knowledge and expertise as resource speaker in the webinar Stigma, Culture, Privilege, Diversity, and Mental Health during the GMC EduTrends livestream program spearheaded by the Guidance Center. So given this 29th day of October 2021 at Jose Maria College, Philippine-Japan Friendship Highway sa Davao City, Philippines. So also signed by Maria 𝗦𝗧𝗜𝗍𝗓, RGC LPT MIC, Dennis 𝗓𝗨𝗟𝗓𝗏, and Doc Marietta A. Muñez. And also, Certificate of Appreciation is also awarded to Ma'am Mervic Kyoko E. Padilla, RPM 𝗚𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗏, for her selfless service in sharing her knowledge and expertise as resource speaker in the webinar Stigma, Culture, Privilege, Diversity, and Mental Health during the GMC EduTrends livestream program spearheaded by the Guidance Center. So given this 29th day of October 2021 at the Jose Maria College, Philippine-Japan Friendship Highway sa Davao City, Philippines. So again, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You all deserve a virtual applause. Thank you so much. So,
Dagang
we hope that we
salamat.
can still work with you soon. And then yung baka yung mga
Soon.
department nyo din, pwede nyo ding invite yung office namin, yung guidance center to have a
The
collaboration
alumni.
with
Well, of
you.
course.
Yes, the alumni
Yes, we will have soon.
I believe that the psychology and the guidance office has a very strong relationship, and we look
Yes.
forward for more contributions of knowledge for both of our programs.
Yes,
Thank
Ma'am
you
Abby. Yung
very
alumni
much.
office din, Ma'am Abby, wag nating kalimutan po.
Of course, ang alumni.
Yes.
And honestly,
Ayan.
alumni of Jose Maria College Psychology Department and the department as well has a very strong band. I believe you are very familiar with that. Mr. Ariel Desadas, RPM Jr., okay?
Okay, thank you so much. So again, to all our viewers, thank you for staying with us. I hope you learned something a lot today, and with that you can apply to your respective lives. And please share all your knowledge. Also share all para makapag-foster tayo ng mental health awareness sa community kung saan tayo belong. Okay, so thank you once again. So I am Ariel Desadas, your host for today's episode of JMC EduTrends. See you and goodbye.
Bye!
Bye!
See you po.